Today. That's mypatriotsupply.com.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
You're tuned in to Money Matters Boston, 1120 AM WBNW. This is WBNW, 1120 AM, the Money Matters Radio Network. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM. Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
October 24th is National Food Day, a perfect time to celebrate fresh, local food right here in Massachusetts. Fall harvest season is in full swing with crisp apples, sweet pears, pumpkins, squash, cranberries, and hearty root vegetables at your neighborhood farmers market. Markets are still open, so grab your bag. Support local farmers and bring home the flavors of autumn. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, helping grow farmers markets across the state. Find your local market at massfarmersmarkets.org.
Mark Vonner is the CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, having served for nearly 20 years, and we are so thrilled to have him and his company as a key partner and the presenting sponsor of the DAV 5K Boston. Mark comes from a proud military family, including his father Victor and his brother Timmy. Mark talks often about how serving his country was one of the greatest achievements of his life, and that's one of the key reasons that he chooses to give back to this special community. Mark is honored to continue his legacy that his father started when he built Veterans Development Corporation. Working to help many disabled veterans and their families has become a lifelong goal for Mark, and it's why he's taken the time to fully support the DAV Department of Massachusetts. You can join Mark Vonner and Veterans Development Corporation and help our great American heroes today by making a donation or becoming a sponsor. Simply visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we've got a guide available this month titled Understanding Required Minimum Distributions. Mike, a lot of changes in the RMD landscape. When do people have to take RMDs from either IRAs or Roths?
How old are you?
Me personally?
So this does start changing now. It is currently 73 for a lot of folks. For some younger folks, it's actually now going to be 75 years old for your traditional IRAs and 401ks. And so that started at 70 and a half just a few years ago. And so this is a new set of rules for a lot of people.
When you look at how the penalty situation has evolved, this is one area that's actually gotten a little bit more lenient in recent years. And so that's something where if you are new to RMDs, there are some incentives if you've missed one to get that squared away as soon as possible.
There are, but, key takeaway, understand these rules and don't miss your required minimum distribution, because there are still penalties for something that, again, is completely avoidable. Yes, the penalties used to be bigger. They are less stringent now and a bit smaller, but it is still unnecessary extra taxes and fees that you will end up paying if you do miss your required minimum distribution. So get our guide and learn a little bit more about how all of this works.
Folks, the guide is titled Understanding Required Minimum Distributions, and there are two ways that you can request it. The first is by calling 800-393-4001. The second is by visiting armstrongadvisory.com. Again, that number is 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We pride ourselves on being able to support veterans in their time of greatest need, ensuring they receive the protections they deserve. For over 100 years, the DAV of Massachusetts has helped thousands of veterans with housing, transportation, and medical assistance, and you can help too. Please visit dav5k.boston and make a donation today. That's dav5k.boston.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
It's Chuck, Mike, and Tucker broadcasting live from the Showcase Superlux in Chestnut Hill. We're joined by a fantastic audience here that has come out to hang out with us on a beautiful fall Thursday.
Yep.
And it doesn't get much better than this, so we're happy to have everyone here. I know we still have some people trickling in, and so we'll be welcoming everyone through. To anyone who is live in the audience, during the breaks, you can ask us any questions that you might have about the show. To anyone who is not live in the audience, you missed out, and maybe you should come to the next one, and then you can ask us questions in between the breaks. But we're going to kick things off today, talking a little bit about, well, this piece from Barron's. What's that, Mike?
The continued shutdown and the lack of government data.
Yeah, we're not getting any government data right now, and so ultimately what it means is that Wall Street and us, we have to try to figure out what's actually going on in the U.S. economy, and specifically what's going on with consumer spending, because, remember, consumer spending makes up, depending on the day of the week, anywhere from about 65 to 75% of overall economic activity in the United States. And so it's kind of important to know what's going on there. So, Mike, overall, what are some of the ways that people are trying to figure out what's happening with consumer spending, given the fact that we don't get retail sales data today as we were supposed to?
Well, we just had the bank earnings come in, and a lot of people were asking there about credit card spending, debit card spending, to try and get a read there. But, honestly, it is not. It's not going to be quite the same as the retail sales data that we get. According to FactSet, there was an estimate for total retail sales to come in at a 0.4% monthly increase, which is, a pretty good growth rate. At the same time, we're getting a lot of surveys of individuals who continue to point towards higher prices and just a lack of earnings to compel them to continue to spend. But as we have discussed, really as the trend for all of this year, like it or dislike it, that specific consumer that is struggling to keep up with prices, that is seeing the grocery prices stay out of their range, is not really what's been driving the growth. The growth has been coming from that upper wealth spectrum, and they, according to pretty much every private company and survey you can get your hands on, continue to spend like it's going out of style.
Yeah, and this gets at the idea that we've talked about this year. We also discussed this back in 2021, the idea of a K-shaped economy. And you're like, well, Chuck, what the heck is a K-shaped economy? How can an economy be shaped like any letter, let alone a K? And basically it's saying, look, those people at the high end of the earning and asset spectrum, they are spending like it's going out of style. The reason being, number one, it is going out of style. And number two, you have all of this, growth in markets that can fuel additional purchases. And for high-income earners, we're not really seeing any signs that inflation is eating into their purchasing power in any meaningful way right now.
What evidence do we have of that, right? We had a bunch of earnings reports from private companies that confirmed that. We had Delta reporting. We had Marriott reporting. What else comes to mind for you that really shows that higher-end consumer keeping up?
Well, I think that those are key data points. The other one that I point to is we just got a report earlier this week. I think it was from Kelley Blue Book, but maybe it was from Edmunds. I can't remember who, but someone in the auto space. And it showed, look, the average price of a new vehicle purchased in September rose to over $50,000 for the first time ever. We've been floating around like $48,000 to $49,000 for the last couple of years. We cleared $50,000 on new vehicles for the first time ever in that month. But at the same time, auto delinquencies are ticking up at a rapid rate to some of the highest levels that we've ever seen as well. So you try to reconcile these two things and you say, okay, I've got vehicle prices moving up to the highest level ever. Well, does someone making $25,000 a year qualify for an auto loan for a $50,000 vehicle? No, they don't.
That's a separate question, maybe, but
maybe if Tricolor's making the loan, but otherwise, probably not. So it's not someone with low income that's buying that new vehicle because, quite honestly, most new vehicles are purchased by people with high incomes. The used market is where you tend to see folks with lower incomes kind of dominating the purchasing. And so I think that that's another place where you're clearly seeing what's going on there. Another place, if you want to look at it, take a look at what's going on with restaurants. We've seen all kinds of weakness in fast food this year, whether you're talking McDonald's, Wendy's, across the board there. It's kind of hard to find a bright spot in the fast food space. The places where we've seen, some decent numbers, hey, it's in, places that are typically a little bit higher end there. When you look at Darden and what they're seeing from like Capital Grille, just as an example, things have been pretty okay there. The one place that kind of goes against that, the fast casual places have been getting beaten up, but I think that's just because their pricing has gotten out of whack. Where
fast casual being the Chipotles of the world.
Yeah, Chipotle's has been struggling, Cava's been struggling, Sweet Green. Basically, think about anything that like wealthy millennials have been attracted to over the last few years. There's been some pullback there, but it's hard to untangle exactly what's going on that front.
Interesting mixed signal I got from somebody just the other day. She owns a cooking class in the Boston area, and it's a dedicated space where people can sign up for. I think they have a few of these a week, and you can sign up. It's a common date night thing or team building thing. She mentioned to me that the bookings right now have fallen to a level that she didn't even see during COVID. Which is, they pretty much had to shut down. She's not including the, probably 6 to 8 week period where they literally couldn't have any classes. But, speaking to, I would think of that as a slightly higher end type activity. But she said, the corporate bookings are still there, but the individual bookings for that date night where you go out and take a cooking class and then eat a good meal have fallen to levels that she has never seen and were even worse than during the COVID levels.
Yeah, so that's not great when you're seeing that type of action in those types of businesses. So I think overall, when we look at households right now, that K-shaped economy, I've actually this is not my own work, Mike, but I actually saw something that I'm gonna
cite as your own work.
No,
plagiarize?
It's not plagiarism if you say it came from someone else.
Yes, you're right.
Plagiarism is when you're like,
hey,
this was my original thought.
No, this is very much not my own work, but if we are in a K-shaped economy that's being dominated by artificial intelligence, AI, if you will, is it safe to say that we are in a Cobra Kai economy?
There it is, Chuck. Yeah.
I believe it is.
Okay.
I believe it is. So as we continue through the Cobra Kai economy, let's talk a little bit about what we saw yesterday from the Fed Beige Book, because this is another instance where, hey, in the absence of the standard government data that we get, we start to do things like actually read the Beige Book, which normally we just kind of look at the summary and say, okay, like what gives, what's going on here. But when we dig through this, basically what the Beige Book is, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it is the Federal Reserve's 12 branches. One of the main functions that they do, that they conduct, they go out in their communities on a regular basis and they talk to business owners and they say, what are you seeing? Tell me about what you're experiencing right now. And overall, the sense that you get here, and I'll quote from CNBC, the central bank's periodic Beige Book, published 8 times a year, generally at about 6-week intervals, categorized overall economic growth as having changed little since the last report on September 3rd. Labor markets were largely stable as demand was muted for most of the Fed's 12 districts. When it came to prices, though, Trump's duties implemented in April and then staggered through ensuing months showed an impact. Quote, prices rose further during the reporting period. Tariff-induced input cost increases were reported across many districts, but the extent of those higher costs passing through to final prices varied. So this was a change from before, where you still had in September and August a lot of chatter about companies that were using existing inventory to not have to move prices up yet.
Right.
We're now in a lot of cases through that existing inventory, and companies that are needing to reorder are saying, yeah, I've got to raise prices in order to reorder, or I've got to eat it, and now my margins are going down and my profit's not as good, and might I lay someone off in the event that I want to maintain my margins?
Yeah, and where we continue to see this most pressure is on those smaller firms. Yeah, Walmart still able to drive those supplier prices lower, but your run-of-the-mill local store with less pricing power really is struggling. I think as we get into retail season, what I'll be looking to differentiate on is when we look at those businesses that are reporting earnings, focusing on the ones that tend to serve a lower income consumer. I think of the dollar stores that are out there. I think of fast food restaurants out there. Are they continuing to see that pullback, and are we starting to see it eat into profit margins? I've heard of many of these companies, McDonald's especially, having to offer discounts to bring customers in. And so do we start to see that? And do the big guys, Walmart, who, again, Walmart serves many different customers, but what they've really succeeded in over the course of the last few years has been bringing in a higher income consumer that's worried about prices. And so they've been able to combat this trend. Some of those other guys, not so much, and we'll be hearing from all of them over the course of the next month or so.
Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the good in the financial sector. Big bank earnings this week, which have been, quite honestly, nothing short of outstanding. And then we'll talk about some of the bad in the financial sector, which is, hey, Jefferies, why did you lend so much money to First Brands? We don't know, but we'll try to figure it out after this.
Text us 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show, and let us know what you think about the stories we're covering. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Hi, this is Chuck Zodda from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Required minimum distributions, or RMDs, may seem simple, but there's a lot more to them than just taking money out of your IRA. RMDs impact how much you pay in taxes, and they can push your income into higher brackets. And if you miss one, the penalties can be steep. They also affect how much your heirs actually get to keep, which makes timing and strategy crucial. If you have multiple accounts, it's important to know which ones you can combine and which ones you can't in order to help you avoid costly mistakes. Our new guide, Understanding RMDs, shows you how to navigate the rules, limit your tax burden, and plan ahead for your legacy. Request your copy today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide from our website, armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Mark Varner is the CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark faithfully served his country from 1981 to 1984, and we're thrilled to have him as a partner and presenting sponsor of the DAV 5K Boston. Mark comes from a proud military family that includes his father Victor and brother Timmy. Mark talks often about how serving his country was one of the greatest achievements of his life, and it's one of the main reasons he chooses to give back to this special community. Mark is honored to continue the legacy that his father started when he built Veterans Development Corporation. Working to help many disabled veterans and their families has become a lifelong goal for Mark, and it's why he's taken the time to fully support the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. You can join Mark and help our great American heroes today by making a donation to support the DAV Department of Massachusetts. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Cushing & Dolan want to help you avoid costly mistakes when it comes to gifting assets to your children. Their brand new guide, Making the Most of Gifting Assets, shares crucial strategies to help you protect your legacy and your family. Many people think gifting is always a good thing, but if it's done the wrong way, it can create real headaches. Even well-intentioned gifts can cause complications if your children are dealing with financial pressure or legal issues like a divorce. The guide also explains how a major gift, like a home or vacation property, could come with hidden tax consequences that may impact your entire estate plan. Before you make any big moves, arm yourself with the facts in this new guide from Cushing & Dolan. Call 866-848-5699 right now to get your copy. That's 866-848-5699. Or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Subscribe to our page and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts, and this year's DAV 5K is Saturday, November 8th at Castle Island. The race is sold out, but you can still take part by making a donation to support our great American heroes. Please visit dav5k.boston to make your gift today. Your participation helps provide vital services like free transportation to medical appointments and safe housing for single veterans and their families. Donate today at dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Mike, so we're basically through the bulk of earnings season at this point for big banks.
Yes.
Yesterday you had kind of the last ones, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley reporting. Just going down the list of, other big banks. Bank New York Mellon reported today, but I don't really consider them a big bank. They're kind of mid-sized at this point. Same with U.S. Bank Corp.
The other Chuck reported this morning as well.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
Charles Schwab.
No
company.
relation. But
tomorrow you'll have Amex, which, again, not exactly a bank, but another financial institution. But yeah, to your point, J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citi, they're all done reporting earnings.
So here's what the banks told us when I look at them in the aggregate. Their investment banking and trading businesses were going gangbusters in Q3.
Yeah.
Knocking the cover off the ball. Just fantastic. Like you look at that and you're like, the only thing that would be better is if they were better, but they're pretty darn good. The home lending business, not really much growth there, kind of flat, kind of nondescript, but no real signs of trouble.
They're also not really giving any real signs of concern about cracks in the foundation. You'd think about, might they be worried about credit card defaults given everything that we've been talking about with the consumer? And the answer's been no. JP Morgan actually lowered their expected losses on credit card loans. And so these big banks are not the best bellwether for the overall consumer, but it's not like they just serve the top 10% of wealthy individuals. They do serve a large swath of the U.S. customer base. And for them to basically be coming out and saying, no, we're not seeing losses on credit cards, we're not seeing growth on home loans, but we're not seeing any real fractures there, it speaks to some real confidence in terms of direction right now.
Now, what they are saying is more of what we talked about in the first segment. So Bank of America splits their spending growth into a few different areas, and what they showed was, hey, lower income households, their spending grew 0.6% year over year. Higher income households, their spending grew 2.6% year over year. Yes, there's more data that's kind of backing that up here. So I think that when we look at what we are seeing from the banks, they're telling us, hey, there's nothing that's really a problem for us yet. And quite honestly, that's what we expect from all of the other data that we've been getting. There hasn't been anything that's shown stresses in credit card delinquencies this year. There hasn't been anything that's shown stresses in mortgage delinquencies. The one place that we have seen it has been in auto loans, but you could make the case, hey, a lot of that might be happening at the dealer level or through non-banks.
Yep.
And that is starting to show up in other places, and that's something that we're going to continue to monitor.
One stat that I just found wild, Chuck. So Charles Schwab, as I mentioned, reported earnings this morning, and just not your traditional bank, obviously. Most of us don't have a Charles Schwab bank account, but one of the biggest trading platforms out there. They reported $134.4 billion in total net new assets. That's a 48% increase from a year earlier.
Did you say 48?
48% increase from a year earlier in total net new assets. It's more than anybody expected. Their trade revenues is growing 30%, topping estimates there. And this is only coming to mind because I'm reading Andrew Ross Sorkin's book, 1929, and that era of speculation and all that the Fed was doing to try to combat it at the time. By the way, little tease, Andrew Ross Sorkin's coming on the show next Tuesday if you want to tune in. But it is something that the Fed is seemingly not focused on, is the level of speculation, the asset level of the stock market. The idea that they are planning to continue to cut into what is very clearly a huge growth in the stock market and a huge growth in the wealth effect is just very intriguing compared to other times in history to me.
It is. I think that you can also make a case that this is a pretty unique time in history in terms of, look, we've seen things in the economy and markets over the last 5 years that we haven't ever seen before.
Right.
And this is kind of an extension of that. So, we've talked about it, and in terms of why the Fed is moving, it's because they're clearly concerned about the labor market.
Yep.
And I think rightly so, given some of the things that we're seeing out there. Now, if you start to see more and more inflation data that is piling up, suggesting that inflation is starting to grow, close to a 3.5% or 4% rate as opposed to, 2.9 to 3.1, then you start having questions about, okay, like, should the Fed, is inflation the bigger problem? But in the absence of that inflation data, it's hard to make that case.
Speaking of the absence of data, we missed the last jobs report that would have come out. Was that 2 Fridays ago now? I can't keep track of the dates, but
yes.
Comes out the first Friday of every month. Right now, we are in that survey period for the October jobs report. If the government remains shut down, I would think for even another week, it seems unlikely to me that we will get that October jobs data.
Don't know.
Yeah. Because remember, they release it, 3 weeks after they actually do the collection, and it takes a while to do it. And right now, there is no collection happening because the government's shut down. So it's entirely possible we will miss the October jobs report entirely.
Yeah, we're now in day 16 on the shutdown there. So, overall, banks telling us, yeah, there are some problems with the economy, but not of our doing. There's nothing that's showing up there. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we do have Wall Street Watch, and then we're going to talk about Jefferies, the investment bank that somehow decided to lend a bunch of money to First Brands.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com. Cushing & Dolan know that gifting assets can be one of the most emotional and challenging parts of estate planning. Their new guide, Making the Most of Gifting Assets, can help you learn what to consider before making a major gift, like your primary home or a vacation property, and avoid unintended tax problems. Call 866-848-5699 to get your copy, or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. If you're approaching your 70s, you might be thinking about slowing it down, but the IRS is just getting started. Required minimum distributions, or RMDs, kick in starting at age 73. And if you were born in 1960 or later, that number jumps to 75. RMDs are more than just a box to check. They can impact your taxes, your income plan, and even what you leave to your heirs. If not done properly, it could mean big penalties, but getting them right might help keep your money working for you. Our latest guide, Understanding RMDs, breaks down how they work, when to take them, and strategies that may make them less of a tax headache and more of a financial opportunity. Request your copy today by calling 800-393-4001 or by visiting ArmstrongAdvisory.com. That number again is 800-393-4001 or ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke, a partner with the law firm of Cushing & Dolan, with their master's in taxation. And today we're talking about the implications of gifting assets away. Todd, if you're trying to protect your assets from the cost of long-term care expenses, what are the risks in giving your assets to a child rather than transferring them to an irrevocable trust?
Yeah, it's a very big difference, right? These irrevocable trusts that we do for Medicaid purposes, first and foremost, are incomplete gifts. So you're not actually making a gift at all when you put it into these trusts. But if you give it to a child, now you've made a completed gift. So, for example, if I gave away my house, and people do it, right? You are giving away the built-in gain in that house. You now don't have any control over the house. You can't sell it and buy another one if you want to move. You need the kids' permission for all of that. Plus, if you never sell it and you die, you've trapped the built-in gain for the kids. When they go to sell it, they're going to have to pay capital gains tax. Whereas if you keep it, you can control it. get a step up in basis for the kids when they die, and still protected from the nursing home through the trust. Either way, it's going to take 5 years. But gifting isn't always the answer.
Educate yourself about the implications of gifting your assets away. Request your free copy of Todd's brand new guide called Making the Most of Gifting Assets right now by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699.
Services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Well, markets are in positive territory and extending their gains, driven by AI and more strong earnings as investors continue to monitor the ongoing trade spat between the U.S. and China. Right now, the Dow is up by 0.1% or 54 points higher. S&P 500 is up 0.33% or 23 points higher. NASDAQ is up 0.2% or about 150 points. Russell 2000 is retreating about 0.2%. 10-year Treasury yield flat at 4.04%, and crude oil is flat as well, edging higher, trading at $58.35 a barrel. Shares in Taiwan Semiconductor are mostly flat now after the chipmaker reported another record profit in the previous quarter, jumping 39%, well above street expectations. The company also hiked its revenue outlook for 2025. Meanwhile, Nestle said it plans to reduce costs by cutting 16,000 jobs over 2 years, sending shares in the maker of Kit Kats and Nespresso capsules up by 8%. Elsewhere, J.B. Hunt Transport Services posted solid third-quarter results, beating on earnings and revenue. Shares in the trucking and logistics company are surging nearly 19% on those results. Other trucking companies are also seeing gains in reaction to the news. United Airlines missed third-quarter revenue estimates but beat earnings expectations. That stock down by over 3%. Travelers down by 3% after posting mixed third-quarter results. Shares in Salesforce are jumping about 7% after the CRM vendor said it expects revenue above $60 billion in 2030. And tomorrow morning ahead of the opening bell, we'll see more financial earnings, this time from Amex. I'm Tucker Silva, and that is Wall Street Watch.
Mike, so every now and then on the show, we just get this convergence where the stack that Tucker has put together is just perfectly timed for something that's happening in the market exactly right now. And this is one of them. Like the fifth item in the stack, it's how Jefferies found itself at the center of First Brand's collapse. Tucker, when did you put this together? This was like 6:30 this morning.
I don't remember. It was early, early o'clock.
Yeah, it was still dark out. And as we sit here right now, Jefferies Financial opened the day flat and sits here right now down about 7.25% in the first hour or so of trading. And this obviously leads you to say, what's going on? So you start digging through it. And first let's talk about just what's going on in this piece. So First Brands is the auto parts manufacturer that turned out to be the center of a whole bunch of questionable accounting and off-balance sheet lending that now totals somewhere in the ballpark of $12 billion when people thought it was about $6 billion in debt that they had outstanding.
Yeah, maybe fraud, may not be, but either case, pretty questionable type stuff that was happening, and many investors or lenders to the company left holding the bag here. Before we go further, does this feel as though it's not getting much coverage in the media? Not First Brand specifically, but we've now had 2 bankruptcies in the auto space and a lot of financials under pressure. And it just seems to me that the only thing that people want to talk about is either China and tariffs or artificial intelligence.
Well,
and I know that, it's pretty niche when we're talking about private credit, but it is kind of the grease that makes the economy work.
Ooh, the grease that makes the economy. It's the grease on the griddle of the economy. Now we're cooking. So I think that when we talk about this, like let's take ourselves back to 2007. Did anyone in April of 2007, want to spend any time thinking about subprime mortgages and whether or not they could matter to the U.S. economy? No, because no one cared. I mean, Mike, this is like asking it's like asking a golden retriever to worry about why the lights aren't turning on. Like they're just like it doesn't matter. It's just whatever. It's not part of their life. It's not part of their perception. So I think that when we look at this, no one cares about First Brands because no one cares about First Brands unless you worked for them or a related company. It's not impacting you in any way, shape, or form right now.
And people don't really care that much about the financial sector. I mean, the financial sector as a whole, it's down about 0.9% this year. This morning, the S&P is up 0.4%. It's kind of buried in the data here, and it's not that impactful on the overall moves of the stock market.
So, but here's the thing. You've watched Mad Men.
Indeed.
And there's the famous scene where, John Hamm is arguing with Peggy. I can't remember the actress's name right now for whatever reason.
Elizabeth Olsen?
Yeah, nope, Elizabeth, it's
Moss?
Moss, that's the one. And so
could do this for a whole segment.
Yeah. It'd be great. So, they're going back and forth, and, she's like, I need, more, and he's like, I'm giving you more, and she's like, well, I need, some positive feedback in this neck, and he's like, that's what the money's for. That's, we get that line, that great line of, that's what the money's for. And ultimately, that's what it comes back to with financials, is the money that's out there, it all flows through there, and it's for the reason that if you don't have it, none of this actually works. The only reason it does is because everyone gets paid. And the only reason that everyone gets paid is because the financial plumbing works. And so I look at what we're seeing today in markets. And you know how for the last month or so I've been saying that something stinks in the auto sector?
Yes.
Something stinks in the financial sector now, and markets are picking up on it.
Yep.
You've got, again, on no major news or anything, insurers across the board selling off 3%. Insurance brokers selling off 4 to 5%.
That piece isn't obvious to me. We got to talk about why insurers specifically would be selling off. So earlier this week, S&P Global, or was it over the weekend? Doesn't matter. S&P Global, a big rating agency, went out there and gave a warning to insurance companies specifically and said that they hold a lot of this debt on their books that is now being called into question. And so they put that warning out there that, hey, these insurance companies hold a fair bit of this. This is where they have gone to juice their returns with their balance sheet over the last few years. It's not been by buying CDs and treasuries like you and I do. They've been making or buying up the loans that other firms like Jefferies and KKR have been issuing to these small companies that are off the books, not traded, and a little bit opaque in terms of how much is out there.
And this is where we unfortunately do take a detour back to 2007 because we're going to have to learn once again about what are called collateralized loan obligations, CLOs. It's basically, remember, in finance there are two ways that everyone blows up typically. It is either there's two innovations that you have on anything. It's either how do I lend to a new, category in some way, shape, or form? And then how do I securitize what I have lent? Basically, leverage and securitization is the whole game in finance. Everything else is just, playing games. It's not real money. It's not where it's made. So with a collateralized loan obligation, it's pretty simple. You have something that is a loan, money that you've lent to someone. It is collateralized, backed by something. In the case of auto loans, it can be backed by the vehicle. In the case of mortgage-backed securities, which are a type of CLO, it can be backed by a mortgage.
What was it backed by in First Brand's case?
Inventory and basically the
windshield wipers and
correct. In the case of Tricolor, the auto loans were backing the loans that they were making, except Tricolor was then pledging them 2 and 3 times over. You had VINs that were listed in multiple packages, it turned out. So there's all kinds of gnarly stuff that you're finding. And the problem is that with insurance companies, remember, insurance companies, with how they are able to raise rates and how much they have to charge in order to operate markets, it's a very tightly regulated pricing structure in many markets, but they're also competing for market share.
Sure.
One of the ways that you can try to improve your pricing is through earning more on your general account. Mike and Chuck each pay in $1,000 a year on their auto insurance premiums. And, hey, if you put that in U.S. Treasuries earning, 4%, great. The general account grows from $2,000 to $2,080. and then they can use that to pay claims. This is a small, simplified example, but that's how it works. On the other hand, if $2,080 is what's needed, but the insurance company says, hey, we can go out and so-and-so is selling a bunch of collateralized loan obligations that aren't yielding 4%. They're yielding 10%. And so, Mike and Chuck, instead of you needing to pay us $1,000, you can pay us $950. We get $1,900 from you. We put it into this 10% CLO, and we still get to $2,090 right now, and we were able to save you some money. Isn't that great? Yes, it is when everything's humming.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing in this market today, people are getting nervous about what's going on with these collateralized loan obligations related to private credit. This is why when you look at the big banks, Wells Fargo's up almost 0.25% today. Bank of America's flat today. JP Morgan's down less than 0.5%. It's not affecting them because they're not the ones
They don't do it. They can't anymore.
Well, they still might end up holding some of this if they're warehousing it in a particular deal or something like that, but it's not like the thing for them. But when you look at KKR, down 2.25%, Apollo Group down 2%, those are things that start to get me being like, okay, what's going on? And then you look at the insurers that are down, anywhere from 2 to 4% today, and insurance brokers down 4 to 7%, and you're like, okay, the market's starting to finally sniff out here's where the problem is going to be if it's going to be there. So
we've got to take a quick break, but I do want to continue.
We don't have to. We can do whatever.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Yeah, that's true. The guy
you
that
can keep
controls.
going.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about what this could mean to the rest of the economy. Obviously, you could have some lenders blowing up, but if credit dries up, to me, that is a bigger story than insurance companies having a tough go of it.
They're both big problems for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about what the next 3 to 6 months might look like in a good situation and bad situation right after this.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Like us on YouTube and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Cushing & Dolan know that gifting assets can be one of the most emotional and challenging parts of estate planning. Their new guide, Making the Most of Gifting Assets, can help you learn what to consider before making a major gift, like your primary home or a vacation property, and avoid unintended tax problems. Call 866-848-5699 to get your copy, or request it online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
The U.S. Virgin Islands aren't just stunning, they're thriving and continue to be one of the hottest spots for vacationers in the Caribbean. New cruise port upgrades, better air connections, and a sharper focus on cultural experiences are putting the islands back on the map for travelers seeking something special. St. Thomas is your cruise hub, known for duty-free shopping and the world-famous Megan's Bay. St. John is pure escape with national park hikes, secluded beaches, and tropical tranquility. St. Croix brings the history with colonial architecture, old sugar mills, and vibrant coral reefs. Visit one island or all three and get plenty of pampering, undisturbed nature, and a vibe like no other, all jammed into one vacation. With easy travel from New England, no passport required, and no money to exchange, paradise is closer than you think. This fall, plan your getaway and fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands in America's Caribbean. Visit usvi.com and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Turning 70 isn't just another birthday. It's when the clock starts ticking on your retirement withdrawals. At age 73 or at age 75 if you were born in 1960 or later, you need to start withdrawing money from your IRA. They're called required minimum distributions, and missing one can mean big penalties. Taking the RMDs at the wrong time can also spike your tax bill. Even the type of account matters, since your IRA and 401k follow different rules, which could get confusing fast. Our new guide is called Understanding Required Minimum Distributions. distributions. It breaks the process down in simple terms so you know when to start, how much to take, and ways to manage the tax impact. Request your copy today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001 or ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Miss any of the show? Catch up at your convenience by visiting financialexchangeshow.com and clicking the on-demand icon where you'll find all of our interviews and full shows. This is your home for the latest business and financial news in New England and around the country. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, so last segment, Mike, we were talking about the problems in this private credit space. And basically, the way I see it, there are, at this point, two ways that this can play out. It's entirely binary, in my opinion. This is either going to be a problem or it's not. There's no middle ground in this. It's either, hey, it actually is contained and it's a small number of companies that are the problem, and all the people holding this are going to figure this out over the next 6 months, or they're going to figure out, hey, it's a bigger problem, and you're going to have, some real issues there. So the question then is, what does it mean, if it's a problem? Because if it's not, basically, what you'll see is all of the places where there are worries right now, regional banks, insurers, Jefferies, all these places. Okay, think about the concern after Silicon Valley Bank, just as an example.
Yep. Got contained, and we moved along.
We saw banks that were, kind of on edge and trading nervously for a month or two, and then everyone was like, yep, everything actually checks out. No one actually has a problem that's that same scale. The couple other problem ones were dealt with over the subsequent weeks, and we moved into the summer of 23 and rallied, and there was not another thought about bank failures. So the path out of this is either, hey, that's where we go over the next 2 to 3 months, or it's another cockroach pops up, another one pops up, they start clustering, and then all of a sudden it's, okay, no one knows what any of this stuff is actually worth.
Yeah, and again, how this relates to big things that we're all talking about, like artificial intelligence. UBS estimates that at a minimum, the private credit sector as a whole is providing $50 billion in quarterly financing for AI-related infrastructure. So I'm a little bit less concerned about the auto sector blowing up and auto loans being a real problem. That is a problem, but it's not going to affect the economy as a whole. It's not going to lead into recession. It's probably not going to spark the stock market to sell off dramatically. The private credit lending industry, taking a step back and looking at their loans and saying we need to pause new issuance or dramatically lower new issuance, is what could lead us into a really bad spot.
And here's the comparison, is in the run-up to 2008. Again, this is a quarter of the size of the housing market, so it's not the same scale. It can still cause problems, but different scale of problems. In 2008, it was, okay, we're concerned about these mortgage-backed securities. We're going to pull back on lending to the residential market, which caused home prices to fall further, which caused more problems with mortgage-backed securities. It was this whole cycle that you got into. you could see a similar one in these non-bank lenders, these private equity, private credit firms that lend money out to those middle market firms.
And investing companies.
That say, yeah, we're going to pull back on deploying capital there. And then you've got a problem in kind of those mid-sized businesses with trying to get financing for either expansion or just to cover over existing financing that's out there.
The U.S. Virgin Islands aren't just stunning, they're thriving and continue to be one of the hottest spots for vacationers in the Caribbean. New cruise ports upgrades, better air connections, and a sharper focus on cultural experiences have put the islands back on the map for travelers seeking something special. St. Thomas is your cruise hub, known for duty-free shopping and the world-famous Magens Bay. St. John is pure escape with national park hikes, secluded beaches, and tropical tranquility. St. Croix brings the history with colonial architecture, old sugar mills, and vibrant coral reefs. Visit one island or all three and get plenty of pampering, undisturbed nature, and a vibe like no other, all jammed into one vacation. With easy travel from New England, no passport required, and no money to exchange, paradise is closer than you think. This fall, plan your getaway and fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands in America's Caribbean. Visit usvi.com and book your trip today. That's visit usvi.com.
Taiwan Semiconductor reported earnings this morning, and they bumped up their projection for 2025 revenue growth for the second time this year. And basically what they're saying is, yeah, we're the only game in town, and we've got pricing power, and as long as y'all want some semiconductors, y'all going to have to pay more to get those semiconductors.
I didn't know that the Taiwanese spoke with such a Texas-like accent.
Have you been to their new facility in Arizona?
I've not, yeah. In either case, when I think about this company, right, we talk about valuations on NVIDIA and you know, what if the Chinese become better at developing chips and are able to outpace things here. In any case, doesn't TSMC feel a little bit more insulated to any of the risks there? I mean, I know the Chinese want to...
Like aside from invasion?
Yes, aside from the Chinese literally invading Taiwan, there is nobody else out there that is producing these things at this scale. I know China wants to catch up. I know Intel's trying to do it here domestically, and we're investing a lot of money in here. But doesn't that seem like a 10-year story rather than a 18-month threat to their business model?
Yes.
To me, the only threat to their business model is AI is a bubble, and we are producing too many chips, and we all have to, and all the companies have to cut back. Then there's a real problem. But there is nobody else that is capable of doing what Taiwan Semi is currently able to.
No, it's in theory, what Intel was trying to build itself into with their foundry business was to be able to compete with Taiwan Semi,
and they have utterly failed to do so.
But it didn't work, and they're like, okay, like this is not going to be part of us going forward. We need to, figure out what to do with that business. So, in any case, let's take a quick break. We still got a whole lot more to cover. Hour 2 of the Financial Exchange is coming up in a bit.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense. Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM. Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
October 24th is National Food Day, a perfect time to celebrate fresh, local food right here in Massachusetts. Fall harvest season is in full swing with crisp apples, sweet pears, pumpkins, squash, cranberries, and hearty root vegetables at your neighborhood farmers market. Markets are still open, so grab your bag. Support local farmers and bring home the flavors of autumn. Sponsored by Mass Farmers Markets, helping grow farmers markets across the state. Find your local market at massfarmersmarkets.org.
The U.S. Virgin Islands aren't just stunning, they're thriving and continue to be one of the hottest spots for vacationers in the Caribbean. New cruise port upgrades, better air connections, and a sharper focus on cultural experiences are putting the islands back on the map for travelers seeking something special. St. Thomas is your cruise hub, known for duty-free shopping in the world-famous Megan's Bay. St. John is pure escape with national park hikes, secluded beaches, and tropical tranquility. St. Croix brings the history with colonial architecture, old sugar mills, and vibrant coral reefs. Visit one island or all three and get plenty of pampering, undisturbed nature, and a vibe like no other, all jammed into one vacation. With easy travel from New England, no passport required, and no money to exchange, paradise is closer than you think. This fall, plan your getaway and fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands in America's Caribbean. Visit usvi.com and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com.
Mark Vonner is the CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, having served for nearly 20 years, and we are so thrilled to have him and his company as a key partner and the presenting sponsor of the DAV 5K Boston. Mark comes from a proud military family, including his father Victor and his brother Timmy. Mark talks often about how serving his country was one of the greatest achievements of his life, and that's one of the key reasons that he chooses to give back to this special community. Mark is honored to continue his legacy that his father started when he built Veterans Development Corporation. Working to help many disabled veterans and their families has become a lifelong goal for Mark, and it's why he's taken the time to fully support the DAV Department of Massachusetts. You can join Mark Vonner and Veterans Development Corporation and help our great American heroes today by making a donation or becoming a sponsor. Simply visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts has helped me and countless others adjust to civilian life through a variety of incredible programs. Through our local Veterans Assistance Program, we provide necessary services to veterans and their communities, such as food shopping, landscaping, and companionship, but we need your support. You can help by making a donation today. please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and our guide this month is titled Understanding Required Minimum Distributions. Mike, one area with some big changes the last couple of years has been RMDs as it relates to inherited IRAs. What is the lay of the land today?
Yeah, so critical things that you need to know is that for most inheritors that are not spouses, so that's your starting point. If you are not married to the person who passed away, you are most likely subject to a out in 10 rule. What has also changed is that you're required to satisfy two different rules for most folks. Again, you are required to empty that inherited IRA within a decade. You also have annual required minimum distributions based on life expectancy. So it is really complicated now for inheritors.
How does that potentially influence how a parent may leave assets to surviving children in terms of taking their incomes into account?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it is going to concentrate this additional income in a decade time period after you're gone. And so it adds a little bit of complexity in terms of that estate planning, right? Maybe I've got two kids. One's a very high income earner. One is a little bit lower. Do I potentially reshape my beneficiaries so that they both receive the same amount, maybe after taxes? A lot of complex planning you can do there.
The guide this month is titled Understanding Required Minimum Distributions. The two ways that you can request it are by calling 800-393-4001 or by visiting armstrongadvisory.com. Again, that number is 800-393-4001, or you can request it at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated.
This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Chuck, Mike, and Tucker with you. We are broadcasting live from the Showcase Superlux in Chestnut Hill. To everyone who turned out for us today, thank you so much for joining us. We're having a great time so far and enjoying hanging out with all of you. If you do have questions for us, you can obviously come up to us during the commercial breaks. You can ask from across the floor, whatever works best for you.
Throw things at us to get our attention.
You can throw things at Mike. I prefer not to have things
Or
thrown
you can text
at me.
the show, too. 617-362-1385 is the text line for the show, and always love those questions coming in.
But you can't talk to us between breaks if you're not here. So just
That's
a
true.
reminder, there are some perks to showing up in person if you want to at our next one that we'll be doing. Taking a look around markets, we've got the S&P 500 up 1/3%, about 22 points. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 79 points. The NASDAQ Composite is up 147 points, about 2/3%. So all indices in the green today, aside from that silly Russell 2000 that just doesn't know what to do. Quite honestly, it's been getting bid up on the really interesting thing about the Russell. So we have to have just a quick little digression here.
Indeed.
Generally with small cap stocks, the ones that perform best over extended periods of time are the ones that are profitable. And the most profitable, as one would expect. The small caps that have been performing best over the last month have been the most unprofitable stocks in the index.
Oh, that's a great sign.
Which tells you that retail is just kind of fishing for all the meme hot names and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just kind of interesting when you see that kind of behavior. It's not normally what you expect from the Russell, and it's not something that usually ends well when everyone's buying all the crap that no one else normally wants. Because once the buyers of the crap stop, then the sellers start, and that's when things get dodgy.
Well put.
The buyers of the crap. We should have T-shirts made of that. We need financial exchange T-shirts with that, and on the back it says the buyers of the crap.
We could do that.
I think that would be really, really good. Taking a look at other markets, U.S. 10-year Treasury. Kind of boring today. Down 0.7 of a basis point to 4.038%. We've been in a pretty tight range for the last 5-6 days on this one. No further movement today.
Well, then you want some excitement, Chuck?
Yeah, what do you got?
Gold's up another 2% today.
Yeah, we're going to have a discussion about gold at some point, just because we're now reaching the point where, people who aren't in the know start, to tweet out things like, oh, like gold only goes up and, things like that. And listen, I'm not saying it can or can't go in any particular direction, but gosh, when you've seen gold run 30% in 2 months, that's a pretty monster move. Gold has a history of monster moves like this in compressed time frames, but even there you tend to see some sideways consolidation like we did this summer as an example where, remember, start of the year you saw about a 30% run-up in gold through mid-April, and then it was completely sideways through mid-August. It took a 4-month break. It didn't really go anywhere. It just kind of sat there and was like, yep, I'm hanging out at the beach. I'm not doing anything. And then it got moving again. So, again, this is what you tend to see with gold. Very long periods of boredom and short periods of either crazy excitement or pure terror.
Yeah, the gold obsession out there is starting to get intriguing to me.
It's all over Reddit right now.
Yeah, it's over Reddit, social media. I keep seeing posts of things like, oh, stocks are really expensive, but when you price them in gold, take a look at this chart instead. I'm like, no one has ever done that until the last 3 years.
Not true.
So
I disagree.
Yeah, okay.
I have actually looked at S&P, charts priced in gold. Like, I don't do it with individual stocks because that's dumb. But yeah, like looking at the whole market, like in gold terms.
Yeah,
it's no different from looking at like the market in yen terms or something like that. And that's also something that I do occasionally because it can tell you some things sometimes.
What does the market being priced in gold tell you now, Chuck?
So, let me actually do it now because I haven't done it recently. So if we want to look at...
It looks a lot less expensive when you price it in gold rather than dollars, obviously.
It does. So again, like if you look at this and kind of look at, the longer-term trends are really what matters. And here's what's interesting. It basically tells you a story about inflation, in my opinion, in that... when you have the S&P rising against gold, tends to be in pretty deflationary environments. I mean, look at the 2010s just as an example. And by and large, the S&P was chugging along, and gold couldn't get off the mat for most of that decade. It went absolutely nowhere. Now, you can have two different reasons why it moves in the opposite direction. The first is stocks collapse, which is what we saw in March of 20. Stocks collapsed, but gold didn't. And so that was the reversal there. It didn't mean that you suddenly had inflation break out in March of 2020. That happened later, in fact. And if you look at this over the course of 22, the ratio between gold and the S&P moved in gold's favor simply because the S&P fell about 25% over the course of the first 10 months of 2022, and gold didn't because it was that inflationary hedge there. Well, if you take a look at what we're seeing over the last month or so now, you've got a case where, and here, this is one point where I think it's important to make a clear distinction. This is not just happening in U.S. markets right now.
Right.
This is not just a dollar phenomenon. The price of gold is appreciating versus every other major currency in the world right now. So this is not something that is betting against the U.S. dollar. I hear it phrased that really often in the last month or two. Oh, well, this is because no one trusts the dollar anymore.
Because nobody trusts any currency anymore.
No, you look across the board, and you've got China saying, hey, we might, print the equivalent of $1 trillion in yuan in order to shore up the financial system because there's too much debt in other places and things are going, not great. You've got Europe saying, hey, here's $500 billion in additional defense spending in the next 5 to 6 years. How are we going to deal with it? and we'll print it. You've got Japan putting in place new leadership of the country that, if you remember Shinzo Abe and Abenomics, which was basically print the currency in order to try to get the economy going, the new people in charge are basically, let's do more of that and more extreme. In the United States, we passed a bill earlier this year that basically said, we're not really going to deal with the deficit. We have some fiscal measures that we'd like to put in place. No tax on tips, additional deductions for people who are retired, additional business deductions, this, that, and whatever. And we're probably going to have 6 to 8% annual deficits for the foreseeable future. So gold is really, I think, starting to sniff this out and saying, hey, none of y'all are credible when it comes to fiat currency or anything like that. Gold is Southern too, believe it or not. It's not just.
You knew where we were going.
I use y'all on a pretty regular basis.
I don't think you do.
I do.
This is like a lot for one show. I don't know where this is coming from.
We're broadcasting live at the Showcase Superlux. We're a little south of our regular. We're a little south of our regular location.
Oh, okay.
Directly northeast. Directly northeast.
That depends on which way you're holding the globe.
Yeah.
In any case, let's take a quick break right now. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by Sarah Foster from Bankrate. She's going to be talking about their workers' survey on pay not keeping up with inflation. We'll talk to her when we return.
Hear the Financial Exchange every day from 11 to noon on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. Keep it here for the latest business and financial news and the trends on Wall Street. The Financial Exchange is now live on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Mark Vonner is the CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark faithfully served his country from 1981 to 1984, and we're thrilled to have him as a partner and presenting sponsor of the DAV 5K Boston. Mark comes from a proud military family that includes his father Victor and brother Timmy. Mark talks often about how serving his country was one of the greatest achievements of his life, and it's one of the main reasons he chooses to give back to this special community. Mark is honored to continue the legacy that his father started when he built Veterans Development Corporation. Working to help many disabled veterans and their families has become a lifelong goal for Mark, and it's why he's taken the time to fully support the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. You can join Mark and help our great American heroes today by making a donation to support the DAV Department of Massachusetts. Please visit DAV5K.Boston. That's DAV5K.Boston.
Cushing & Dolan want to help you avoid costly mistakes when it comes to gifting assets to your children. Their brand new guide, Making the Most of Gifting Assets, shares crucial strategies to help you protect your legacy and your family. Many people think gifting is always a good thing, but if it's done the wrong way, it can create real headaches. Even well-intentioned gifts can cause complications if your children are dealing with financial pressure or legal issues like a divorce. The guide also explains how a major gift, like a home or vacation property, could come with hidden tax consequences that may impact your entire estate plan. Before you make any big moves, arm yourself with the facts in this new guide from Cushing & Dolan. Call 866-848-5699 right now to get your copy. That's 866-848-5699. Or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The U.S. Virgin Islands aren't just stunning, they're thriving and continue to be one of the hottest spots for vacationers in the Caribbean. New cruise port upgrades, better air connections, and a sharper focus on cultural experiences are putting the islands back on the map for travelers seeking something special. St. Thomas is your cruise hub, known for duty-free shopping in the world-famous Megan's Bay. St. John is pure escape with national park hikes, secluded beaches, and tropical tranquility. St. Croix brings the history with colonial architecture, old sugar mills, and vibrant coral reefs. Visit one island or all three and get plenty of pampering, undisturbed nature, and a vibe like no other, all jammed into one vacation. With easy travel from New England, no passport required, and no money to exchange, paradise is closer than you think. This fall, plan your getaway and fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands in America's Caribbean. Visit USVI.com and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Subscribe to our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. Looking for a getaway that's easy, warm, and unforgettable? Discover the magic of the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. Just a short flight from New England with no passport needed and no money to exchange. Soak up the sun, stroll along white sand beaches, and feel the rhythm of the heartbeat of the islands. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Plan your fall escape now at visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
Joining us now is Bankrate's Sarah Foster on their worker survey and specifically pay compared to inflation. Sarah, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Always great to be here.
So I want to start off with the actual data that we have on inflation and wages, and granted we haven't been getting it for the last couple of weeks, but most data that's out there from the DOL or the BLS seems to indicate that compared to this time last year, average wages are actually up more than inflation. Is that the case? I know it's not what you found in your survey, but is that seemingly the case that wages, when measured by government statistics, are actually higher than inflation?
That's right. So the data that we have so far through the shutdown shows that really actually since about the middle of 2023, wages have been rising faster than inflation. But when you look at we have a separate research report that kind of tracks purchasing power, which is a different way of maybe looking at this question. That's when you find that since the beginning of 2021, prices have risen much faster than paychecks. So there's a gap there, meaning Americans can't buy the same amount of stuff that they used to be able to buy at the beginning of 2021. So even though wages are rising faster than inflation right now.
Sarah, are you still there? We may have just lost Sarah. We'll work on getting Sarah back, but let's Chuck, let's move on for just a moment here because we have a related story of Americans and their jobs in this workforce.
You didn't want to do Jeff Bezos saying that millions of people are going to be living in space by 2045?
I mean, if that's where you need to go at this early in the show, then we can go there. Let's talk about the American workforce instead. What does Barron's mean when they say that Americans don't have good jobs? Because these types of stories, I don't debate that a lot of Americans have jobs that they might not like very much, but I don't like trying to categorize good versus bad jobs.
Well, this tries to, okay? And this is a study that was done by Gallup. And I'll just quote from Barron's here. A quality job is defined in the joint study as one that has fair pay, sustainable schedules and workloads, and provides a safe and respectful workplace allowing opportunities for advancement and a voice in decisions. So, here's
no
the thing.
Kidding, that's not most jobs.
I got to be completely honest. I think the numbers might be wrong on this, actually, and the picture's bleaker than it even is painted here. Like, this says 60% of Americans lack quality jobs. If you're looking for all of that in a job, I bet it's probably like close to 80 or 90% of Americans lack quality jobs then.
Do you really need to have your voice heard in decisions
So
to have a quality job?
No, but okay. So this
I
is
agree. Like,
let me this is a separate tangent, but one that's related. I think that one of the main reasons that people become disillusioned is in anything is not because their voice needs to be heard in making the decision, but their voice does need to be heard.
Sure.
Like, if you look at just in terms of, any kind of discontent that shows up, whether it's in a job, whether it is in a family, whether it's in a community, whether it's in a political party.
Yeah, they feel ignored.
It's generally just like, hey, you're ignoring me. Someone doesn't always have to choose what you want to do. But yes, I do think that at least, like, even if you just have like a suggestion box or something and you actually read the suggestions or something like that, something where you can have a voice in your company, yeah, like little stuff like that matters. People just want to be heard, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that, and to that point, if those are the criteria you're looking for, I would estimate that closer to 90% of the workforce is not in that, quote, quality job. But, I keep going back on this, which is we are pretty certain, like I am fairly certain that over
Mike,
the course of the last...
let me tell you what a quality job actually is.
Okay.
A job that pays enough for you to do what you want to do. There's nothing else. Okay? It's about the money. Everything else is kind of secondary. We can talk more about that. I think we got Sarah back on the line.
Sarah, sorry about that. Thanks for sticking with us here. And back to the survey. Tell us exactly about what you found, because the most workers in 4 years of doing this survey are telling you that their pay isn't keeping up with inflation. So what specifically are they citing, and did you find it varying between age demographics?
Yeah, so great to be back here. Thanks for having me back. I'd say that, the purchasing power that Americans feel like they have is worse since it was before the pandemic. So wow. Americans are really feeling like they can't buy the same amount of stuff with the wages that they have. And, I think as the kind of the bad thing that's hagpening right now is as inflation is accelerating again, the labor market is also slowing, and it's a phrase that a lot of economists refer to as stagflation. So they're finding it a lot harder to have the negotiating power to really ask for raises or to find better paying jobs.
When you take a look at all of this data as well, I think of the other things that are impacting people's wallets. We've got student loans that just restarted over the course of the last couple of years. And inflation in the aggregate, if you look back 5 years now, I would guess that piece certainly has outpaced wage growth. So what are people trying to do to keep pace in today's economy if they are just in the workforce and don't have other ways to supplement their income?
Yeah, well, we know that a lot of workers do have an interest in searching for a new job. We run a separate survey that really finds that even though the labor market has slowed, many people are still looking at what's out there. Some are still interested in asking for higher pay, asking for more flexibility. So I think, the interest is there. It's just whether the appetite is on the behalf of the employers. And what we found is that over the past couple of years, workers are really not in the driver's seat anymore. It's really companies here who know they have the leverage because there's just more job seekers now than job openings. Hiring plans have slowed so much. And so it's probably why you've seen just a rising share of workers, too, in our survey. 43% say they didn't receive a pay increase at all.
What portion of people you talk to are legitimately concerned about losing their job in 2025?
We found that there is a rising amount of people who aren't confident that they'll find a better paying job or get a raise over the next 12 months. And some of the people who, across generations who are feeling, worried about that lack of bargaining power. It's really Gen Zers, it's baby boomers, it's millennials. And I think it's difficult because, Gen Zers in particular, they're the ones kind of feeling this slowdown in the job market even more. This is the time in their careers when they'd be job hopping, when they'd be asking for higher pay, knowing that the salary that they make early in their lives really sets the stage for what they make throughout the rest of their careers. We saw a huge drop in the amount of people who felt confident that they'll get a pay increase in Gen Z. And that's also probably because just 17% of them found a better paying job over the past 12 months. The year before that, about a third of them did. So a pretty big decline.
Sarah Foster from Bankrate joining us today to talk about their worker survey, specifically on pay not keeping pace with prices. Sarah, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Taking a look at markets as we head towards the bottom of the hour, the S&P 500 is up 11 points, a little less than 0.2%. Dow Jones up 71 points, about 0.15%. And the Nasdaq Composite now up about 78 points, or 1/3%, as markets are trying to hold on to their gains. As I was speaking, the S&P just fell another 5 points and is now up 6 points. So you're getting a little bit of choppiness still in markets. And by the way, something that you're still seeing, the VIX, the volatility index, continuing to rise on days when the market is rising. Someone is trying to sniff something out in this market right now, and it feels a little sniffy. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we got trivia. We got Wall Street Watch right after this.
Financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. If you're approaching your 70s, you might be thinking about slowing it down, but the IRS is just getting started. Required minimum distributions, or RMDs, kick in starting at age 73. And if you were born in 1960 or later, that number jumps to 75. RMDs are more than just a box to check. They can impact your taxes, your income plan, and even what you leave to your heirs. If not done properly, it could mean big penalties, but getting them right might help keep your money working for you. Our latest guide, Understanding RMDs, breaks down how they work, when to take them, and strategies that may make them less of a tax headache and more of a financial opportunity. Request your copy today by calling 800-393-4001 or by visiting armstrongadvisory.com. That number again is 800-393-4001 or armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
The U.S. Virgin Islands aren't just stunning, they're thriving and continue to be one of the hottest spots for vacationers in the Caribbean. New cruise port upgrades, better air connections, and a sharper focus on cultural experiences are putting the islands back on the map for travelers seeking something special. St. Thomas is your cruise hub, known for duty-free shopping and the world-famous Megan's Bay. St. John is pure escape with national park hikes, secluded beaches, and tropical tranquility. St. Croix brings the history with colonial architecture, old sugar mills, and vibrant coral reefs. Visit one island or all three and get plenty of pampering, undisturbed nature, and a vibe like no other, all jammed into one vacation. With easy travel from New England, no passport required, and no money to exchange, paradise is closer than you think. This fall, plan your getaway and fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands in America's Caribbean. Visit usvi.com and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com.
Mark Vonner is the CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, having served nearly 20 years, and we are so proud to have him and his business as a key partner and a presenting sponsor of the DAV 5K Boston. The DAV Department of Massachusetts does incredible work, and it's one of the first organizations that Mark became familiar with after his military service ended back in 1984. As Mark built his company, he knew he'd be giving back to fellow veterans who needed jobs, support services, medical supplies, and so much more. Mark works with disabled veterans every day, and it's one of the key reasons why he's such a big supporter of Dan Stack, the DAV Department of Massachusetts, and the DAV 5K Boston. You can join Mark Vonner and his team and make a donation to the DAV Department of Massachusetts or become a sponsor of the DAV 5K Boston. Simply visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke, a partner with the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with a master's in taxation. And today we're talking about the implications of gifting assets away. Todd, since the estate tax laws are projected to change on January 1st of 2026, significantly reducing the estate tax exemption, does it make sense to gift away assets right now?
You know, it's a big question mark. You have to think of a few things. One, look at the size of your estate. If the exemption falls to $7 million each and you're married, you can still die with $14 million of assets and not have an estate tax. So gifting might not be important from a federal gift tax situation. But the state exemption's only $2 million, so you can only shelter $4 million. So you might want to gift to reduce your state estate tax. However, there's basis to consider. If you give away low basis assets, you're trapping capital gain. And to do that, you might be paying more in capital gains taxes later when the kids sell the assets than you're saving in just Massachusetts estate tax. So you really got to think about whether it makes sense to gift or not. And if you're going to gift, you should probably set up a gifting trust. People might be gifting large assets away and not gift the assets directly to a child. Have them in a trust for the child's benefit and then protect those assets for them.
Educate yourself about the implications of gifting your assets away. Request your free copy of Todd's brand new guide called Making the Most of Gifting Assets right now by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request a copy from their website, LegalExchangeShow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Markets are pulling back slightly from their earlier gains, but remain in positive territory as traders sift through a new batch of third quarter earnings. Right now, the Dow is up modestly, only 33 points higher. S&P 500 is up 0.1% or 10 points higher. NASDAQ up 0.4%. Or about 107 points. Russell 2000 is down 0.33%. 10-year Treasury yield down 2 basis points at 4.024%. And crude oil up about 0.33%, trading at $58.47 a barrel. Shares in Taiwan Semiconductor now down 1% after the chip maker reported another record profit in the previous quarter, jumping 39%, well above street expectations. Meanwhile, shares in Salesforce jumping about 4% after the CRM vendor said it expects revenue above $60 billion in 2030. Elsewhere, J.B. Hunt Transport Services posted solid third quarter results, beating on earnings and revenue. Shares in the trucking and logistics company are surging 19% on those results. Micron Technology up about 7% after UBS increased its price target of the chip maker's stock, noting Micron will get a boost from a memory chip shortage. T-Mobile upgraded by Wells Fargo to overweight from equal weight, citing an attractive valuation relative to rival AT&T. And tomorrow morning, ahead of the opening bell, we'll see more financial earnings from Amex. I'm Tucker Silva, and that is Wall Street Watch, and we'll do trivia quick here. Today is actor Tim Robbins' 67th birthday. Robbins, most famous for starring in The Shawshank Redemption back in 1994. Robbins didn't win an award for his performance in that movie, but he did win Best Supporting Actor 10 years later. So our trivia question today, which movie did Tim Robbins win Best Supporting Actor for? Once again, which movie did Tim Robbins win Best Supporting Actor for? Be the fifth person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer and win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Once again, the fifth correct response to text us to the number 617-362-1385 will win that t-shirt. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Mike, I want to go back to the quality jobs piece just quickly. I made the point, look, the only thing that, like, if we're talking like quality job, like the money is what makes it.
Sure.
And here's where I get to this. Is there any job in the world that has any kind of real promise of job security at this point?
I mean, 5 years ago, I would have told you like a good old government job. No,
I can't conclusively say there's job security in any one particular spot. Sustainable schedules and workloads, Mike. If someone paid you $80 an hour to work at Amazon, you could probably deal with it. You'd be like, "Yep, sign me up. I'm good with it."
Yep,
the workload,
give me all
the
the
schedule,
overtime I want.
Fine. Like whatever you want to do. Safe and respectful workplace, yes, I'll put that on there. Like, you don't want to be being like squashed by forklifts and things like that.
Or yelled at. Yeah, okay.
Like, I could understand that.
But again,
Like pay and
for
safety.
the right pay, people climb, cell phone towers and do all sorts of dangerous jobs. For the right pay, people go onto oil rigs in the middle of the ocean. So, yeah, it's about pay.
Pay and safety. Like if you have, again, or there's a lot of safety regulations that are in those industries now.
Sure.
I mean, there's a reason why, we do some things certain ways. So that's kind of where I wanted to get back to. But that was kind of my last point on that. AI data centers, desperate for electricity, are building their own power plants. How many guinea pigs do they have fueling these things, Michael?
So here is where I went with this. There's been a lot of talk about how utility companies are going to benefit so much from the AI data center build-out. If these AI companies are coming to the conclusion that utilities are going to be too slow or too costly to produce the energy that they need, and instead they're just going to build the generation themselves, does that trade still work? I mean, seemingly the answer is yes, because there's going to be so much power demand that there's plenty of profit to go around. But that's what came to mind for me anyways. You've had all of these traditional utilities trading through the roof on presumed electricity demand. And at the same time, you now have Tesla and Oracle and a bunch of other companies saying, yeah, we'll just build our own gas-powered electricity plant that will not distribute to your community. It's just going to be here to power this AI data center.
So, couple things. The first is, yes, look, listen, if you don't have to deal with all the interconnection stuff and this and that, you can build power plants more quickly in theory. I say in theory because there still is one limiting factor when it comes to building power supply, and that is the companies that actually make the equipment that goes into power plants. They're not built for a rapid, acceleration, just because, here's the thing about building power plants. If you're like Eaton Corporation, just as an example, and they're one of the companies that makes big turbines for gas plants and stuff like that. If you're Eaton Corporation, Mike, how often do you get an unscheduled customer that just walks into your business and is like, gee, I'd like
$100 million.
I'd like one of those turbines today, please, thank you. No, this isn't like buying French fries. This is, you're buying a natural gas turbine. And so they typically know years in advance, okay, we made 8 last year, we made 14 the year before, we made 12 the year before. Yeah, we can budget for 11, and we can have an overflow capacity of 1 or 2. Eaton Corporation's not suddenly going to be like, hey, let's double our head count because we can sell twice as many next year, because they know, guess what, you're probably not going to be on a permanent schedule of needing twice as many of these.
Yep.
And so the interesting thing, I forget where it was a month or 2 ago, but it was someone at one of the big AI companies. It was either OpenAI or Google or Meta or whoever. And they were talking about, look, the problem that we have is chips on one level, but the real bottleneck is you can't get the power equipment next year because it's already booked out to 2028 from the companies that make this stuff.
It all leads me to one conclusion, Chuck, which is all of us are going to be paying a lot more for electricity over the course of the next decade. Whether you are an AI data center or whether you are a person in your home, the electricity costs themselves will be going up dramatically. We may get to a place a decade from now where the market has now oversupplied power generation and we're in a much better spot and those costs start to moderate. But I hesitate to see a scenario where electricity costs for everyday consumers are not heading north pretty quickly over the course of the next decade.
Do you want an off-the-wall prediction as a result of this, Michael?
Always.
The U.S. is going to see a huge resurgence in expansion for solar and wind power over the next couple of years because conventional sources will not be able to ramp up quickly enough. And despite
the lack of subsidies,
the lack of subsidies and the Trump administration not wanting to invest in these areas, I think they're almost going to end up being forced to because the market is going to dictate that you need to get any power deployed that you can.
And you can do that faster than nuke gas.
It's kind of like how, you remember during the Biden administration at first, people were like, oh, this is going to be terrible for energy companies. And then it turned out to be great for energy companies because the Biden administration was so tight on new production that prices went through the roof.
Yeah.
It's almost like, don't you feel that's setting up for renewables?
Could be.
In that it's kind of like, hey, nobody wants to subsidize you, which is why everyone's going to end up paying more for you.
Folks, brand new guide from the Armstrong Advisory Group for the month of October. Required minimum distributions, how to understand them. I was in an interesting meeting just a couple weeks ago with my 90-year-old client and her 65-year-old daughter, and we were talking about the subject of required minimum distributions. And the 90-year-old mother had her own set of RMDs. The daughter had lost her husband 2 years prior, and so we were talking about the rules regarding his old IRA. We then talked about what would happen if mom passed away and left the IRA to the daughter and the different set of rules that apply under that scenario. And then I threw out a fourth one of my own mother-in-law who lost her longtime unmarried partner who passed away, left her the IRA, and a complete different set of rules for her and that IRA. The rules around required minimum distributions are immensely complex. I constantly joke that Congress is making sure that the folks at Armstrong Advisory Group have permanent job security based on how complex they make this. But if you are anywhere within, let's call it a decade of retirement, now is the time to start thinking about how these rules are going to affect you and how to best prepare for them. There's a lot of things that look like a gift, like the IRS pushing back that RMD age from 70.5 to now 75. Whenever the IRS gives you a gift, there's usually some caveat to it, and we're here to help explain what that actually means and how you might end up paying more taxes even though the IRS has pushed back that date. If you'd like a copy of our brand new guide, it's Understanding Required Minimum Distributions. You can get it by calling 800-393-4001. It's our free guide. You can request it online too at armstrongadvisory.com, but the phone number 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Mike, what story do you want to do next? I kind of destroyed my stack.
Hidden costs of downsizing, Chuck. We talk about this one all the time with clients of, hey, I raised my family in this 4-bedroom home and now it's just me or just, me and my wife, and would love to find something smaller, but smaller homes don't really exist. This piece explores from the New York Times some of those costs of actually downsizing and making this transaction, because I think as many people probably out there listening have come to find out, downsizing is not that convenient or easy, and finding a new home that is smaller in many cases does not save much money.
No, and the other thing that I will advise people to be very careful of in this situation is if your downsizing happens to be moving into a condo community, whether it's single-family homes, townhomes, apartments, whatever it might be, you really got to do some due diligence on the financials of it these days, because especially if you happen to be living in Florida, Texas, California, areas that are getting hit by, more and more natural disasters, some of the assessments that I am seeing on a per-unit basis for these condo associations are significant to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars.
Yep.
And you really have to do the due diligence on, hey, how well funded is the association? What contingencies is it prepared for? How the master insurance policies for the association, how are those covered? How have they evolved in the last few years? There's a lot of work you need to do, because I've seen people go in being like, oh yeah, this is fine. The condo fee's $200 a month and blah, blah, blah. And then first year they're like, by the way, here's a $40,000 assessment that we're hitting every unit for because of X, Y, and Z.
I will also say, though, that people dramatically underestimate how much it's going to cost to upkeep their larger home that they don't need as they age. Nobody ever factors in the cost that they're going to have to hire somebody to snow blow the driveway or to mow the lawn or to, do those projects that one used to be able to do in their 50s and now are in their late 70s and are not comfortable doing.
My general rule of thumb, during kind of your working years, assume that upkeep and maintenance and everything will cost 1% of the home's value each year. Once you can't do it all, it's going to be double that. Quick break. We got Stack Roulette next.
The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network. The U.S. Virgin Islands aren't just stunning, they're thriving and continue to be one of the hottest spots for vacationers in the Caribbean. New cruise port upgrades, better air connections, and a sharper focus on cultural experiences are putting the islands back on the map for travelers seeking something special. St. Thomas is your cruise hub, known for duty-free shopping in the world-famous Megan's Bay. St. John is pure escape with national park hikes, secluded beaches, and tropical tranquility. St. Croix brings the history with colonial architecture, old sugar mills, and vibrant coral reefs. Visit one island or all three and get plenty of pampering, undisturbed nature, and a vibe like no other, all jammed into one vacation. With easy travel from New England, no passport required, and no money to exchange, paradise is closer than you think. This fall, plan your getaway and fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands in America's Caribbean. Visit usvi.com and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com.
Mark Vonner is the CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. His dedication to serving our veterans has made an incredible impact on his family and employees. And he is so proud to be the presenting sponsor of the DAV 5K Boston.
This is Brittany Vonner. I'm a registered nurse who is now working as an assistant project manager at Veterans Development Corporation. Working with my father, Mark, has been an incredibly rewarding experience. Our company is dedicated to serving VA hospitals and veteran communities. We don't just build facilities, we build environments that support healing, resilience, and family. We are so proud to see our work directly impact the lives of veterans and the professionals who care for them. This rich history is why we care so much about supporting great organizations such as the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts and the work they do to care for our veterans.
Join Veterans Development Corporation in thanking our great American heroes. Please visit dav5k.boston to show your support today.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Turning 70 isn't just another birthday. It's when the clock starts ticking on your retirement withdrawals. At age 73 or at age 75 if you were born in 1960 or later, you need to start withdrawing money from your IRA. They're called required minimum distributions, and missing one can mean big penalties. Taking the RMDs at the wrong time can also spike your tax bill. Even the type of account matters, since your IRA and 401k follow different rules, which could get confusing fast. Our new guide is called Understanding Required Minimum Distributions. It breaks the process down in simple terms so you know when to start, how much to take, and ways to manage the tax impact. Request your copy today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001 or ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
The Financial Exchange is live on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132, weekdays from 11 to noon. Get the latest business and financial news from across the country and around the world, and keep up to date on how it might affect your wallet. That's the Financial Exchange, weekdays from 11 to noon on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, in the prior segment, we asked you the trivia question, which movie did Tim Robbins win Best Supporting Actor for? That would be Mystic River. That's right. Adam from Orleans, Mass. is our winner today, taking home a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Congrats to Adam. And we play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
All right, I got to cover Jeff Bezos saying that millions of people are going to be living in space 20 years from now.
No, they're not.
So here's the thing. So I admire Jeff Bezos.
How many people live in space now?
Michael, let me do my.
I got a lot of questions for you, Chuck. Go ahead.
I'd like to talk about this. So here's the thing. Anyone who's a visionary by their nature is going to say things that sound absolutely crazy and insane. So I think it's important to note that, like, if 20 years ago you had told people, hey, in the palm of your hand, you're going to have, the entire, computing power of the entire world in 1967, we would have been like, no, like that's crazy. But we sit here today, and I can make memes on my phone using AI as much as I want to. Like it's great. This, on the other hand, is what I do think is the not real kind of visionary stuff. And if I'm wrong, then shoot me into space as one of those millions of people, because I'd love to go. But Michael, do you know how many people in the world have ever been to space?
Don't know.
600 plus.
Okay.
The numbers are between 650 and 670, depending on how you define space.
Yeah, trying to hit the millions 20
but
years from now.
It's over 600 and below 700.
Okay.
So the idea that we're going to have millions of people in space within, 20 years, millions of people living, which means that you have to start getting them up there soon, because you're not going to suddenly just be like, hey, we're going to get 1 million people up in 2045. You got to be starting with 10 this year and 20 next year and 4. You got to have some kind of growth rate to get there. It's not just going to happen. So I'm going to take the under on millions of people living in space in 2045. Tucker, can you put that on the board that I would like the under?
I'll put it right up there.
2045.
Okay.
We'll keep that track of that, Chuck.
So I got the under, and we'll check in 20 years.
Sam Altman being once again forced into the public on issues with OpenAI and what he's calling the moral police.
Oh, because he decided to open a porn shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, effectively.
Yeah.
And he's basically come out and said, with very few exceptions, we're not going to be the moral police to decide what ChatGPT can or cannot be used for. In this case, it was discussing erotica. And he basically said that they're going to...
What a cop-out.
Yeah.
Imagine Walmart being like, well, we're not going to police what's in our stores. Anyone who wants to can sell whatever they want. No, that you make decisions as to this is the kind of business we are, and this is who we want to serve, and then you serve those people.
Well, no, they are making a decision. They're saying they're perfectly comfortable with it.
Which, the interesting thing that I pointed out yesterday, not even 3 months ago, Altman came out and said, hey, we're not going to try to juice our revenue and profits by putting AI, sex bots on our website. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what they're doing now, which makes me personally be like, oh, gee, your super smart AI doesn't seem to be so super smart if you just have to have it talk dirty to you, does it?
The only thing that they seem willing to do is crack down on age verification in order to determine what can be used and what cannot. And look, this is going
Which
to be...
they say they're also going to verify using AI. I'm sure that's going to work great.
Yeah, they are not the only company that is struggling with this issue, and it will not be the last. But whether it's Facebook parent company Meta, whether it's OpenAI, there are going to be some morally ambiguous uses of AI that they're going to be continued pressure to create.
As we head to the top of the hour, the S&P and Dow now slightly negative. The NASDAQ holding on to 0.25% gains, so we got some intraday volatility, just like the last few days here. A lot of choppiness in markets, a lot of sorting out going on. We'll be back tomorrow to finish up the week on the Financial Exchange.
Mark Varner is the CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark faithfully served his country from 1981 to 1984 and